Howdy, everybody. If anything, we are doing a very interesting way of doing another video. If anything, again, we are using my knowledge, my brain, on how I point out some things that maybe people realize too. If anything, there's quite a few people that I think have kind of done this topic, and people might say that's like, well, it's been done. You would be sadly mistaken. And I say that because I think I spent quite a bit of the day looking through these things and stuff like that. But there were things that a lot of people mentioned. But I was just like, well, why? Because, like, if anything, like, I was watching a horror movie earlier, and like I just started seeing funny things about the thing. So if anything, that's what kind of started to get me interested in doing something like this. Anyways, before I get into this whole shebang, again, I'm going to mention, because I've mentioned this on quite a few videos already, and who knows what this video will do. It might get, it might be an interesting topic that's different than everything else, and it might skyrocket to heights unbelieved. Or it'll just be another one of those things that slowly climb up the ladder. Or it'll just be a thing that I watch it and I'll have a low view count on it, but if anything, it'll probably be my most favorite thing to do. Out of like, this video will probably be my favorite, just because, if anything, like I said, I'm a big movie buff. If anything, I really want to do a movie called Movie Buff, where there's a guy that has that goes into a horror movie like scenario, and mathematically, because he knows horror films, he can just like knowledgeably just be like, okay, well, immediately you have a 30% chance to at the end of this movie you have 27, you have 40. It's like, oh, you're a girl, 80% chance. Because he knows movies, and if anything, it would be like a guy that like has wrote so many horror movies because he just has seen so many films and everything like that, that he's just a good horror writer, and he lives off in boondocks or something, and his daughter or something is going off to this tropical party because herself is a big movie fan, and completed this horror trivia thing online, and ideally he's going on, or she's going on this trip, and he's just like, I think that's a bad idea. It's like, if anything, I feel there's something sketchy about this. So him, being a billionaire or whatever, decides to take his own plane to this place, and like, ideally she doesn't really know he's there, but he just kind of like watches her from afar because he knows there's something fishy. And then, if anything, there's just a group of people that won this contest as well, so these people get put into the situation, and then they have to use all their movie knowledge to fight their way out, because there is also a group of people that wants to kill the other movie buff people, because if anything, uh, like one group try to find another group, it's almost kind of like Hostile in a way, almost. If anybody's actually seen those films, I've seen I think a good chunk of the first film, and then I saw a good chunk of the second film late at night. But anyways, on to the one thing about my channel, and we'll get straight to this whole thing. Anyways, I am currently doing a shut my mouth challenge, meaning if this video goes well and tends to get a lot of views, if people continue interest in this going forward, or are already subscribers, I would highly recommend that people ask other people to join as well, to get view count up. And if anything, I think we haven't really even tapped into the amount of things that I could go on here with. Then also I feel that if we've had videos that are 100 views, 300 views, 70 views, 40 views, 30 views, we can make this happen. It can happen, because I believe in us. I believe that we can do this. It's possible now. And then if anything, like I said, I'm gonna give people so much knowledge and so much information, so it's not like I'm just doing a video where I'm staring at the screen to say, oh yeah, subscribe. Like I'm giving people stuff. Like I'm giving somebody to offer something, and if anything, I can maybe do something risque if we make the monetization marker, or I'll do something unique and interesting. Like YouTube, it gets to a point where there's not a whole lot interesting, but anyways, if people are consistently watching these, you'll see that I always have a subscription button in my thumbnails. If we do this, that'll go away. If we do this, me talking about my channel and not getting to the point and stuff like that, that will go away, and I will go straight to the meat of the subject. We won't have to, and I'll stop babbling as much as possible, and we'll get right into the meat of the subject. But like I said, this is a shut my mouth challenge, so that way I don't have to beg for views, beg for subscriptions, beg for whatever, because you guys will have shut my mouth, and we can just go on to the better part of this video, which I'm going to do right now. If anything, this is movies that defy the laws of logic. Meaning, things that when you watch a movie, an action movie, a horror movie, there's probably going to be a lot of horror on here. Horror. If you watch certain, like, I'm not going to go out of my way to do something that is completely, like, almost cartoonish, and like if anything, there's a bar set somewhere. But anyways, if anything, the first thing that I am going to bring up could be a little construed as things that maybe some people have mentioned, but a ton of my stuff will feel very unique in a way, because I will bring up maybe a little bit of stuff that bugged me as well, that probably other people have discussed. But if anything, a lot of the stuff, it's going to be different, so keep that in mind. Anyways, on to the meat and potatoes. The first thing that out of the gate, there's not going to be a countdown, a number system, nothing. It's just going to be me doing a bunch of tangents. If anything, we have where, in perfect example, a monster movie where a guy is with a girl and they're on a date, and all of a sudden it gets really dark outside, and all of a sudden the guy is just like, and the girl's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Oh, my hand!" And the girl's like, "Oh my god, are you okay? Are you sick? Are you this? Oh my god, are you kidding me?" It's like, if, like, all of a sudden this guy's like, and like his nose and his bones start to, why wouldn't you run from that? Why would you stay there and be like, I gotta see this through because he's my boyfriend? That is the dumbest thing ever. Like, if anything, most of these transformations take anywhere from like 10 to 30 minutes. So, like, within that time, by the time you hear this first, like, she could be running like she could have been a mile down the road by the time that this guy is done transforming into whatever he's transforming into. But anything, it's like, that is probably, out of all that, like, that is probably the most ridiculous thing, is just like, why wouldn't, like, I understand being in love, but if, like, somebody, your friend, your boyfriend, whoever, is turning into some kind of creature, I would be booking it. And, because that's the stupid thing, is, like, but people are, it's like the, in those, sci-fi movies where you see the big, huge ocean typhoon thing, and people are just like, they're just staring at it, and they're not gonna try and run. They're not gonna try anything. They're just like, "Oh my god, that looks so crazy," and they don't freaking do anything. Like when in Independence Day, when the aliens are gonna shoot that thing onto the that building, people are just like, "Oh my god, they're here," whatever. Like, dude, I wouldn't be exactly sure if that'd be a weapon or not. So, like, I'd be freaking trying to book it. Like, if anything, like, better to be safe than sorry. But on to yet another thing. I know a lot of times people will say, like, in action films, like, people have way too many freaking bullets. Like, it seems like they have an infinite amount of bullets, but then they accidentally, at the worst time, finally run out. But it's at the worst time, and that's usually when they end up getting killed, or that's when they have to, like, kung fu fight their way out. But the other part of the action films that I'm going to mention is whenever it seems like somebody has some kind of ransom demand, or, like, say for example, it's like $5 million or something like that. A whole thing of $5 million seems to fit in one briefcase. Does that make sense to anybody? It's like, that doesn't make sense at all. If anything, like, $5 million should be, like, in, like, a couple of briefcases. And then anything, like, I remember in the movie Dodgeball, where Ben Stiller offers Vince Vaughn's character, like, $10,000 or something. And then he opens the briefcase and he hands him this just, like, stack of cash. He's like, "Yeah, I know all these movies tend to over-exaggerate big payouts and stuff like that, but this is really what $10,000 looks like," and he chucks it at him. And I thought that was smart because it's finally making sense of that. But anything, back to doing horror movies. If if anything, it's very funny how it seems like whenever uh, whenever a person is going to get killed, they are in the most empty environment possible. It feels like at the time that this killer is gonna go after this person, it seems like they said, "Okay, excuse me, people. Um, testing 1 2 3. We have to completely evacuate this entire area because I have to kill somebody. So if you could please move to a different part of the town, because this woman has to run a marathon to get to anybody, and I don't want her to do that right away. So by the time that she just gets so tired from running and just hides in a stupid area like a closet or a or behind a chair or in a tiny ass room where there's no possible way for her to defend herself. It's just like, if you watch so many movies, like, I don't care if people could say it's like, well, it depends on the time of night and whatever. No, it, like, every time, like, it's like Deadpool, the first Deadpool movie where Deadpool opens the door for the Xavier Mansion and there's absolutely nobody in the Xavier Mansion. It's exactly like that. It's just like that. But anyways, going on to yet another topic. If anything, if you didn't see my shirt, of course, Halloween Havoc, and that makes perfect sense for what I'm doing here, because it's like Halloween Havoc. Because we're talking mostly about horror movies, but if anything, it's just Havoc. If anyway, I think it's funny in action movies where it seems like everything has to just explode. Like, man, they should really test these things before they bring them out in the public, because, man, they freaking easily explode. I swear, if you watch, like, the movie, like, the John Cena movie, like, Marine, I swear everything in that movie, like, explodes. Even if it doesn't make sense, it just explodes. And it's like, it gets to the point where it's just like, I want to see something that there's absolutely no way that'll explode, but it freaking does anyways. Just for freaking comic relief at that point. But anything, back to, like, let's even briefly talk about, like, love movies. How all of a sudden there's a guy that's just like, I really want you, but the girl is just like, well, yeah, but I'm with somebody else. But it's just like, but that, like, eventually, like, it just doesn't matter, and all of a sudden she just, like, throws herself at him, and they just go at it like wild, crazy animals. Like, there's so many times in movies where, like, that tends to just happen, and eventually the other guy just ends up turning into some kind of like jerk, and then it makes, like, the rest of the movie just makes sense of it all. If anything, talking about the thrills of passion, and anything making transition, I wish that I freaking hate in these, like, mostly horror movies where someone is so freaking scared. It's ridiculous how many times in, like, a horror movie a girl has to freaking frantically just scream her head off continuously and cry and, I don't want to die. It's like, I would love it if these people are knowing the situation that they're in and they freaking own it. And they just like, well, this is what's happening, so I'm gonna freaking own it. And if anything, there is a great example of that. I think the most realistic horror movie is Halloween H2O. If there's some parts where I'm gonna mention another part of this that makes that movie might look bad, but if anything else, that's probably the most realistic horror movie I know of. But anything, I'm gonna mention another movie. They're like, cause Jamie Lee Curtis pretty much owns it in Halloween H2O. But anything, there is this movie called Straw Dogs that I'm sure probably a lot of people have never heard of. But there is a situation later in the film. If anything, there is an earlier part of the film where one of these guys kinds of takes advantage of a woman and in a sexual way, and then later on this group of guys goes and attacks this this same girl and her husband that she's with, because eventually they're kind of like outsiders, and I think they don't want to have these guys put in jail and this and that. But if anything, the thing that I absolutely love about the end of this movie is that James Marsden, the guy who's most famously known from Cyclops, the original Cyclops from X-Men, he goes and he just becomes this badass. He just starts cleaning house, so to speak, with these guys, and he just figures out ways to take them out, and he just becomes like so freaking awesome. And like, and if anything, he absolutely owns this situation, and it's so great to see something like that. If anything, like Freddy Krueger, when he is going about his way trying to kill these kids, he freaking owns the room. He owns the situation. If anything, in Freddy vs. Jason, he freaking owns Jason. And if anything, there is a movie called Forsaken, which I'm sure probably not a lot of people have heard of that either. This movie is a vampire movie. And at the very end of this film, we get this guy vampire who is going to turn some of these people that's in this house. Well, when he knows that he's going to come after these people, he starts singing Metallica songs in the most scariest possible way he can. But man, is he just so like I said, that guy is such a badass, just going in through there, like singing Metallica, just like, yeah, I'm gonna get you, kind of. It's so cool, and that's a great part of that movie, is just him freaking owning it. If anything, the next thing that I'm gonna mention, and I don't know, I might have to even do a two-parter of this, just because I might have so much information and not a lot of time. If anything, the next part of this, another horror movie thing, is I don't mind that people are so freaking curious and they have to go and invest some weird noise they heard, or because maybe they don't have pets or something like that, so they go and invest whatever's going on. The problem that I think of that is, if they're rationalizing it in their head, where it's just like, well, maybe it's just a small rodent or something like that. Ideally, you know what, if I were to be here on this, you know what I'd do? I'd just be like, yeah, I'm gonna go investigate that. But then I grab a freaking weapon. I grab a freaking knife, and I bring that with me, and I would just be like, okay, let's see what this is. I'd grab a baseball bat or a knife or a sword or something, and I would see what it is, because like ideally you would be prepared, and like if it is just a rat, like then you can have something to smash it with or stab it with, or like that's the dumb thing that gets me, is just like but here's yet another thing. I I understand what these people that do horror movies are trying to do, because they're trying to milk things out and try to create an eerie atmosphere, or try to maybe scare people or something like that. But what I find very irritating is when you get somebody that they go and they go into a room and they feel they're safe or whatever, and they go to sit on their bed, and there's a door open in the background, and the killer is just kind of like standing there because a lightning flashes and you see the killer standing there, and then the person goes to that same room and turns the light on and nothing's there, and she's like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, if anything, the perfect example of this is the movie called I think it's called The Strangers, where there's constant times where the person eventually actually gets into the home that these two people are in, and he just kind of just like looks at them, and then they do what they're doing, and then he just kind of slowly just walks his way out. And if anything, there's consistent times where that just happens, and if anything, it makes for a fairly like, when is this gonna happen finally kind of thing. But if anything, like, it just feels like where in the original Predator movie, where Arnold is just kind of like laying there and he's down and the Predator is standing over him. He's like, kill me now, I'm right here, kill me. And Predator's like, not today, let me go around and let's try something different. He's like, kill me now. That's what it feels like. It's just like they're trying to sell something. And of course they're trying to sell something. They're trying to sell a 2-hour movie. And if they did one of these scenes kind of right away and then just stab somebody, then the movie would be over. And like, but it's just like, I guess it's trying to build up momentum or anticipation of when we'll finally get these scenes. And I think in like Happy Death Day, they tend to do these kind of scenes quite a bit. So that way the death becomes more, it's not always the same death, but he always finds some way to take his sweet time to kill this person. Anyways, on to other things. I'm trying to think if I got all the thumbnail stuff out. Trying to think. There are times in movies when, like, I think the whole killer calling people on the phone is kind of old at this point, and I just think it's stupid, because who would really answer their phone? Who would deliberately watch a video that has some kind of lore or something like that could kill you in 7 days, unless like you're suicidal or whatever? Then it would make more sense. They did like a gothic movie where a bunch of girls were just like, yeah, I just really want to end this, and then it would make sense. Like, ideally, if they were just that dark and whatever, and they were just like outcast the world, like, that would make more sense. But if anything, I think it's kind of ridiculous in movies how the smartest man that knows the most about what's going on is completely ignored. Or, like, if anything, he has to struggle to get his point across. And, like, here's the guy that's been through this before and he's come back and he's telling these people, like, dude, you don't get this. It's like you haven't been through this. I have. And here's how. And people are just like, yeah, whatever, dude. And then they end up getting killed. And it's just like, told you. I freaking told you. Like, and it's just kind of like, if this person has knowledge, use this person. Otherwise, he just becomes irrelevant, and then he gets really ticked off because he's just like, dude, why am I even here? It's like these people are all just going to kill themselves because they're not listening to what I'm saying. It's like, if you guys all just want to, like, get eaten alive or whatever, it's like, that's on you. But if you want to take everything that I say with every breath and word or whatever, then we'll make it out alive. There's so many times, like in the Jurassic Park movies, where there's a person that experienced this before, and the Jeff Goldblum line from the second one where he's like, oh yeah, it's beautiful now, but then there's the running and then the screaming, and so it's just like these people have knowledge that these other people just completely want to ignore, and that's stupid. It's stupid. And like, I hate when also you get somebody that's obviously in a movie just to be killed off. If anything, a lot of people like will put like the race card in that, like, oh well, this race isn't gonna definitely get through this movie or something like that. But if anything, like I said before, like if you're a woman, you have like probably an 80% chance to survive more than a man does. I think it's hilarious that a killer can be absolutely unstoppable when it comes to most of these slasher films and stuff like that, like a Jason or a Michael Myers or whatever. Like, absolutely unstoppable. Like, if anything, if you are like 10th degree black belt and you're and you can lift 900 pounds, or you're this like freak of nature almost, that's just like even in the military or a Navy SEAL or something like that, like, you are probably going to end up getting killed. And I think it's funny how many times that you could be a person that runs a marathon, you can be the most athletic person ever, and still you will trip and fall on your feet, and then the killer will be so far from you or will be so close to you. I think these killers, I think they should finally rationalize this whole thing and just say that each one of these Michael Myers, Jason, whatever, they have teleporters, because holy crap, like, that would make the most sense. Because why is it that this person could be running and being a mile ahead of this killer, and then the guy looks back and he sees that the killer is like a mile away from him, and so he's just like, oh, okay, maybe I can make it, whatever. And then all of a sudden he trips on a brush or something and falls, but he's like, well, I think I'm still a good pretty far pace away. And then he kind of adjusts himself and quickly gets up. And then once he turns around, the killer is right smack dab there. It's just kind of like, it's like, that's like freaking hilarious. It's like I said, like, I think they should finally justify it and just be like, these killers have a freaking teleporting system, or they have some kind of hidden underground that you've never known about, but that's how they can quickly appear out of nowhere, because that's just ridiculous. it's just like that makes no sense. But anything, I would wish that if people know that they're going to be in this kind of scenario where they know that they're probably in this woods and the killer's in the woods, I would just love it if like somebody would just freaking own it and just be like starting to freaking like singing as loud as they possibly can, maybe to annoy the killer. Just be like, dude, I know you're gonna be after me, so fuck it. Like, I'm just gonna do this, and because I know you're gonna get me, so I'm gonna have some fun with this. And if anything, like it would make for a much more unique scene. And I like the characters that pretty much like sacrifice themselves for other people. I like those characters because if anything, they make these stories more fun. Because if everybody was just like, "Oh my god, I don't want to die," and then you get nobody who is gonna freaking step up and just be like, "Well, I know I'm probably gonna be one of the guys that gets killed right away. So if anything, I'm just gonna make this freaking interesting, and I'm gonna go out in a blaze of glory, so to speak." So, like, if anything, I think that would drastically, like, I like those kind of scenes where somebody knows they're gonna go out. So if anything, they're even like tempting the killer. It's like, dude, I'm gonna buy you guys some time. You guys are gonna go and do what you need to. I'll be the decoy and distract this guy so you guys can escape or whatever. And that would drastically change how these movies are done, because a lot of them is just like everybody. And the stupid thing is like, you can say, it's like, oh, you didn't talk about when they stupidly would say, oh, okay, let's split up. But if anything, there's so many times when even still a group is together and the killer just kind of like slowly, methodically takes them out one at a time, even when they're in a group. That doesn't make any sense. If you're in a group of people and like the other parts of the group are just letting this happen, and I understand like not wanting to get like killed or whatever, but like if you could like group together and like, because if anything, like the whole thing of when, like, if somebody were to say if the killer and you and your friend was in the middle and your friend trips or whatever, well, the killer is etching up next to him. Like, if anything, if the guy that's in between these two, like, how come they've never done where the other person just freaking drop kicks the freaking killer, and then it's just like, hey man, we've knocked him down, now let's run. And if anything, if their leg gets broken, then they can kind of like carry him and like, oh, okay, let's go. Like, I've never seen that happen in films, because it would just like make more sense. If ultimately if you have to go back for this person, then that's the best way to do that scenario. But anything, I'm a little concerned that this video might end soon. So if anything, I will probably say good luck and goodbye, but I'll probably still talk until this video ends. And if anything, if I go through here and if this video does well, I will definitely probably come up with a two-parter, because I think there's probably a lot of stuff that I had still rattling in my mind that I didn't go on to this video. Two-parter to be determined on if this goes well and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed this topic, because it, like, if anything, it takes funny things that were done in movies, and I think tank of how to make them better or more interesting, or I just bash them because it's funny. If anything, I think it's funny in like the Cabin in the Woods, like the very first part of that movie. You have all these people that have these hugely advanced degrees, but then all of a sudden, you get all this uh, because there's I would say if people haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, really go and see that movie because there's so much great things that finally justify why people do a lot of stupid stuff in these other films. And it might be a little off-putting because there's two different stories going on simultaneously, but it all wraps up in a nice and cool and neat little bow. So if anything, like I said, that movie makes sense of everything. Um, and if anything, like I said, this video will probably end soon. So if anything, uh, I think it, like I said, it's funny how like killers are just completely indestructible. Like I would love to like just sing like the Disturbed song "Indestructible" because it fits that like super well with these killers. Um, and I think it's funny how many people do dumb decisions and like say like a I recently watched I think it was called Wish Upon, where a girl does several or does quite a few wishes, but then every wish kills somebody she knows. If anything, she takes this and just continues to wish anyways, even when she finally finds out that each one of these wishes have a death toll. She keeps wishing. She's like, well, I'll have one wish left, and then maybe I can milk that out for the rest of my life, and like it'll be okay. And people are just like, dude, if you make that one last wish, like this thing will come for you. And she's like, well, yeah, but like I won't use that last wish. Like I've had 6 already, and there were some that I didn't even realize like that what I was doing, and it's just like if that's a very interesting movie too, because you see that the good person that's supposed to be in this movie is actually pretty much the villain also, and it's that's an interesting like scary movie. uh it's kind of like almost like Final Destination in a way. But anything, I think it's just kind of like funny how Final Destination was getting, where the one guy was in the cabin and he's like, oh yeah, I've